Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another Sunday talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. Of course, I am one of your two hosts, Nora Kyle.
And I am the other one of your two hosts who is not Nur Kyle.
That's Mushtaq. Do you want to share your name with everybody?
I didn't bring enough of my name to go around. I'm sorry.
No. Okay, fine. All right. Mushtaq's being a pain in the butt today, but he is your other host. And thank you for joining us. Everyone made it. Today is our daylight saving time switcheroo in the US. So hopefully that has not impacted too many people. If you're watching this on the replay because you didn't make it, we missed you, but it's okay. You can meet us next week. You just gotta figure out your time zone situation. So, anyways, yeah, thank you for watching, whether you're here live participating or you're joining us on the replay. We are so happy to have you here. And you can always interact with us via our comments if you have questions or thoughts or things you want us to consider for future talks. We're definitely welcoming those. And you can help us out by doing that subscribe thing. Let us know if you like this video. We really do appreciate that as well. Otherwise, in terms of updates, quickly, today technically was our deadline for our May retreat. This is May 8th through 12th in Sweden, southern Sweden. If you'd like to join us, you can still sign up for that. We have a week or two that we've extended our deadline by, and if you want further information on anything related to the retreat, we'll have a link to that in the description below. So check that out. We would love to have you. There's still room. Anything else, Mushtaq?
No.
Yeah. So let's just get started. So we're going to be doing something a little different from what we've been doing these last few weeks. We're going to be doing, I guess we could consider this an exercise. It is a practice. It's an exercise. But
It starts out as an exercise and then becomes a practice.
There you go. And this is a visualization thing. And we're going to explain why this is a critical component to any of the work that we do, because we like to look at this stuff holistically. So where should we start, Mushtaq?
So there has been this thing floating around the internet for a long time, maybe for a while, called the cube meditation. And it's about, and they claim that it is a Sufi meditation. And in it, you see a desert, which in your mind's eye, then you visualize a cube in the desert, and then you visualize various aspects of the desert. And then, depending on how you created these images in your mind's eye, you use it as something to tell you something about yourself. This is not that exercise. That exercise is just a silly Rorschach test. As far as I can tell, no Sufi anywhere in all the time that there has been Sufi has ever done this exercise and called it a Sufi exercise. Somebody made it up somewhere. But this is an actual cube exercise. And what it is designed to do is to train you to be able to focus your mind and visualize clearly, even if you've never been able to visualize before. And some people say, I've never visualized in my life. And it turns out they're wrong. They just are not really conscious of it. So this is a way to become conscious of it. And this is the very first step. This is like the toe in the water. And it gets very elaborate after a while. It's not as elaborate as like the Tibetan Buddhist visualizations where you've got all of these things going on, but it definitely sharpens the mind. And it's like it's weightlifting for your mind. Our particular flavor of Sufism says that you work on all aspects of yourself. We're not the guys who just go around doing bhakti yoga, right? We're not into, just, singing, dancing, spinning in circles and being all heart-centered. Nothing wrong with that. Very important to develop the heart center, but you also need to develop the moving center and the intellectual center. If you don't, you walk around lopsided.
And that's a critical part of this, is that sense of balance. You're not leaning too hard into one thing or another to the detriment of these other centers. Yeah. So, with that said, this practice is specifically focused on which center, Mushtaq?
On the intellectual center, and specifically the visual area of the intellectual center.
Right.
And there's a reason for that, because you have to start with your senses. And your sense of sight, both externally and internally, are integral to the thinking center. So, are you intrigued? Yes, we must.
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I like to hear.
Team spirit, Jefferson.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, it starts very simply. Close your eyes and visualize a perfect square. And I'm going to show you actually a picture of this, so you know exactly what I am talking about.
So you can look at the picture.
Yeah.
Close your eyes, obviously. All right. So what we have here, I will describe it for people who could not see this. We just have the outline of a two-dimensional square.
Yeah, at least it appears to be a two-dimensional square. And you want to put this at the level of your eyeballs. So it's right here in your visual field. Now, for most people, it takes a minute to be able to get this clearly. And you will probably spend a week just on this. After your teacher feels that you have gotten this down really well to where you can hold it, they will say, make sure you are remembering yourself while visualizing the square, which is to say, make sure that you are taking account of your own awareness as part of the process of this. This is very important. This is what separates this from every other visualization exercise I've run across. So you're in a state of muraqabah, of self-remembering, and you are visualizing this square in your mind's eye. After you have done this enough, you rotate the square, and it turns out that if you rotate this square 45 degrees, it becomes a cube. And you look at this and you go, oh, I can see the cube in that. And it's still on the same plane. You're looking directly into the center of it. And for probably a month, you're going to spend time going from the square to the cube, rotating it another 45 degrees back to a square, and then another 45 degrees so that you can see two faces at once. And you're going to spin it that way. And the ideal way to spin it is from right to left, but if you spin it from left to right, that's okay too. And when you can move from square to cube to square to cube, as if you were rotating this in your mind's eye, you have gotten this step down. Make sense? Pretty
Yes.
easy, yeah?
Yeah, do we have a question already? Good. Okay.
So if we have done that long enough, we move to this. So we have tilted the cube to where we can see the top of it. So we've gone to what looks like a square because we're looking dead on, rotating it 45 degrees, and then tilting it just a bit.
Tilting it just a little bit downward, right?
Yeah,
The front of it is
yeah, you
tilted a
drop
little
the
bit down.
front just a little bit down. And then you tilt it back up to where it's like the second image. And then you rotate it 45 degrees until it's flat again. And then you rotate it another 45 degrees. Then you tilt it again. Then you tilt it back. Are you beginning to see a pattern here? By this time, you've probably been working at this, if you're like most people, for 2 to 3 months to get this down really clearly. And during the whole time, you are remembering yourself. If you lose that part of it, you're just making pictures in your mind's eye and it's of limited usage.
So that's extremely significant. Like some people
Yes.
might be like, oh, you know, I do this all the time, no big deal. But it's that part.
Yeah. I mean, I do it all the time. Like when I do math, I see the equations. When I visualize for doing art, I see it in my mind's eye before it ever gets onto the screen. But it doesn't mean that I am remembering myself while I'm doing that. It's just part of what could be, and often is, if I'm doing repetitive parts of the art that I'm working on.
Yeah.
You know, I will oftentimes just do it unconsciously, but we don't want that. So after you've gotten this, we're going to start here, rotate it this way, rotate it up, and then rotate it down. So we have a 4-step here, and I'm going to go back from a square face, 2 faces, to looking down on the 2 faces, to looking up on the 2 faces. Questions so far? Does this seem fairly straightforward? Good. I love it when a plan comes together.
I have a question.
Now, yes, ask me a question.
Well, I guess it's a self-observation that I want to run by, because it's almost like I can convince myself that I'm doing it, but if I'm really honest with myself, I'm not seeing it per se, but I'm believing that I am. And it's almost like I have an idea of it without the actual crispness of the image.
And the image may not be crisp, especially at first. It doesn't mean that you aren't doing it.
Okay.
What color is your bedroom?
The walls are gray and the ceiling is white.
Do you notice that you just made a picture of that in your mind's eye?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that incredibly clear and crisp, or was it a little bit fuzzy?
No, I interpret it almost kinesthetically.
Yeah. Yeah, that means that probably you are leading with your visual sense and then checking it with your feelings to make sure it's correct. I would bet you that that's what you're doing. I only have a tiny little picture of you here right now, so I can't see for sure. But
where my eyes are going. Yeah.
Yeah, where your eyes are going, where your body's moving, all of that.
Okay.
I could see where your eyes were going when I initially asked you. You just accessed your visual very, very quickly. So a lot of people do this. This practice is, amongst other things, to help you make your visualization sharper. And that's why this takes time. I mean, I can run through all of these in my mind's eye, but I remember when I first started doing this, it was not totally clear. It was not like the picture on the screen. Now when I do it, it's like the picture on the screen. Only I usually do it black background and white images because I'm just contrary that way. Yeah, so
It doesn't really matter.
Thanks, that was helpful.
Yeah, don't worry about it if it is not if it's not perfectly clear in your mind's eye yet.
Right. What I was going to say was, do you feel like the colors, textures, whatever are relevant?
Not at this point.
Hmm.
Later on, you can add all of this, but you have to start with the simple before you get to the complex. You know, I could say, visualize a pineapple. I say that, and most people are going to get some sense of a pineapple, but can you visualize the pineapple so that you can see all of the texture of the leaves coming out at the top and those weird scaly things along the side, and look deeply into it and move it around and look at the bottom where it was cut off from the plant and all of that? Probably not, unless you're a very visual person, but with practice you can. Now, the last step of this is important because this takes you into the next phase of the exercise. The last step of this is you look at the square and then you shift it so that you're bringing the backside up and creating this cube. This is a little bit harder than the first four. And I recommend that you do the first four until you can do them very well. And then we move to this. And then there's a whole series that you go through with visualizing this cube, or this aspect of the cube. And eventually, you get to a diagram that is very, very complex. And maybe later I'll show that to you if y'all still have the interest. But this is where it all starts, is being able to do this. So this is step 5. If you get to this step and you want to take it further, write me, call me, ping me on Facebook, and I can help you with the next step.
Give it some time.
Yeah. Yeah, this is not a quick exercise. So, how do you begin to visualize this? Especially if you're not good at visualizing, the way we learn to do it is you take a piece of paper and you draw a square and you look at it. Move to a blank part of the paper, draw another square, and then look at that. And you continue doing that and following it with your eyes and imagining it as you do it. When you can do that, and then eventually you'll just be able to close your eyes and draw the square, and it's right there for you. After that, you can do it with your eyes open, and that's where it gets really cool. So let's do this using this image on the screen. Take a breath. Let it out. At the pause at the end of the breath, find yourself. Notice your own awareness looking out through your eyes at this stupid square on the screen. And then follow it. I usually start at the bottom right, or the bottom left, go up and across and down and back. But you can also start at the bottom right and go, or at the bottom left and go to the right and up. You can start at any of the four corners. You can start at all of the four corners. And just trace that with your eyes and imagine it as you trace it. Once you have done that, you go to the next. This is a more complex visualization. So it's up to you how you do this. When I drew this, I made two parallel lines, a line here and a line here. Then I made a center line that was a little bit longer than the two parallel lines. And then I connected them like this and like this and like this and like this. And that gave me this image. That's one way to do it. You can go any way that you want to do this. And again, you literally imagine yourself drawing the image while looking at it over and over again. And you can see down here on the bottom left that there's a little gap, and that's because this is where I started drawing the image here and put it together, and that one last one didn't quite snap the way it was supposed to, and that's okay. Perfection is not what you're looking for. You're looking for the image in its totality. Now, to draw the next image in your mind's eye, you need to take these two bottom lines and raise them up a little bit. We also need to, this needs to raise up here. So goes up, goes up, goes up, and goes up. It's not straight out. And then you have the top of the cube here. And so you figure out what's the best way for you to do this. And the first one, the first cube, these two lines also went down towards the center point, and that's what gave it its perspective. Now, because it goes up, it says that this is the top, especially once you connect this. And then finally, you get to this, and it's the same thing. These go down, you make the little thingy here, and life is good.
Put a roof on it. Or
put a roof on it.
Floor on it, yeah.
Yeah. So, any questions so far? Silence.
I have
Mr.
a question.
Queen. Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe it's just important, but is there any significant why the cube, not pyramid, for example, or any other objects?
There is the mystical reason, which is that this represents the Kaaba, which is the central focus point of religion. But it's also cubes are easy to visualize.
But one can do with the other.
Yeah.
If they want to.
Yeah, as we progress, we add more to it.
Okay.
But you got to start with the simple stuff. You know, remember, in religion, they say, face the Kaaba and pray, not immediately go to Mecca and circumambulate the Kaaba, right? You got to sneak up on that. So this is sneaking up on it. And remember, in Arabic, the word for cube is makab, if I'm remembering correctly,
Macabre.
which is from the same root.
Yeah. Eugene has.
Yeah, I was wondering, is any compass orientation on the cube? Do we do that because
We're going to put a whole bunch of different orientations on the cube. You can start with the flat square and consider that the directly facing the cube. And if you wanted to, you could consider that east. But the thing is, you know, we were talking about the Kaaba, which is this big cube-shaped building in Mecca. Once you're there, yeah, in Saudi Arabia, once you're there, everywhere is facing the Kaaba if you're walking around it. So it can be any orientation. Here, if I want to face the Kaaba, I either have to face north or I face east, depending on who I'm following. But, you know, I can take a map and draw a line from where I am to where the Kaaba is and just point myself that way, probably 5 or 6 different ways, because we're on a globe. So north goes up and then drops down on Saudi Arabia. East goes like that. I could also face west and still be facing the Kaaba if I do my math right. So but yeah, if you want to orient the cube, the flat face it east towards the rising sun.
Is that helpful, Gene?
Yeah, I'm just curious how we look at that, but yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Good.
Anybody else have any thoughts or questions?
Well, I'll just say
Jefferson, yeah.
that I noticed that to be aware that I'm aware while I'm doing it, that seems just really important, because when I activate that, I lose a familiarity for sure of visualization. Like I feel like I'm being pulled. I feel like there's a pull away from, just trying to describe the sense, but I get that is really important, because it's like it's easier a little bit to just be in my bubble mind, but to really be aware stretches that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is the whole purpose of this. I mean, we want you to have really good powers of visualization, but even more important than that, what we want is for you to be awake while you are doing processes like this. You want the mind to be awake, the feelings to be awake, and the body to be awake.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. It's the challenge to be aware. The self-remembering part is a challenge.
Yeah, and the better your powers of visualization, the more of a challenge it is.
Right.
Yeah, like the power to do the self-awareness takes away the visualization. It's about to manage that.
Yeah, it's tricky. And I can sit and do math in my head, right? And just picture the equations. And when I do that, I tend to lose myself because I'm so used to doing that. that I will, run through a whole bunch of algebra and then go, wait a minute, where was I? Where was I when I was doing that? And then I have to go back and do it again while being present, even though I had the answer. And that's the tricky part of this. What this is a way to train your mind and your awakeness at the same time. There is a set of exercises for doing this with the auditory sense, learning how to create sounds and hear them in different places. So I can sit here and I can create for myself the sound of somebody striking a bell. And I'll start with it here. Then I'll move it so I'm listening to it with my left ear. Then I move it behind me. Then I move it to my right ear. I move it above me. I move it below me. And create the sound coming from these different directions while staying awake, which is the hard part again. Have you considered that you can make a sound come from anywhere you want? I mean, you're sitting in a room right now. What if you decide that you want to hear a sound behind you? What would that sound like? And what would it be different? How would it be different than a sound coming from in front of you? Tricky, no? This is why we start with the visual stuff first. Then, the hardest of all is doing this with our bodies. There are a bunch of exercises for this. The simple, what they call body scans, where you're moving your awareness through your body, that's good. But there's also moving your body through space and perceiving it at the whole time, being awake while moving your body in certain non-habitual patterns, which is how Gurdjieff got his dances.
And that's where things become challenging, even where people feel something, well, it's challenging whether it's easy or it's difficult, right? Because
Yep.
if it's difficult for you, you have to put a lot of focus into building the basic set of skills required to do the thing, like building a sense of acuity in your imagination to imagine a cube,
Yeah.
for example.
And all of these exercises that I have talked about so far are just the ones for the mind. They're just the ones for the intellectual center, and to a certain extent, the opening up the higher intellectual center. There are exercises as complex for the heart center and the moving center. And probably at some point, if enough people are interested, we'll talk about those too. But we start here.
Yeah, well, where I was going with that was to say that whether you find this difficult or easy, there's something in this exercise for you.
Oh, yes.
Because if you find it easy, it's so easy to fall asleep. It's easy to be like, whatever, I know this already. I'm done. I don't need to work on this. Or you just kind of zone out as you're doing it. You're not tuning into yourself remembering. So you got to check your ego at the door on this one, whether you're, starting with building the basic skill set to do the thing, as I said, whether it's a movement or a mental visualization or, an auditory imagining, that kind of thing. Everybody needs to start somewhere on this. So you may as well, as I said, check your ego at the door, try the thing, see where you can improve in doing it, because you can always improve. There's always room for improvement on this.
Now, if you want to know where this is going, I will show you. Get back to me here. Eventually, you will get to the point where you can visualize this.
As you can see, this is a much more complex geometrical shape and pattern.
And you'll also notice that this is a multi-dimensional pattern. You can allow your awareness to shift in a lot of different ways. This could be a flat image on a flat screen. You could be looking from the bottom up. You could be looking from the top down. You could be looking from the right. You could be looking from the left. You could see all sorts of different parts of this in all sorts of different ways. And you can learn to make this and make it do all of those shifts according to your intention. This will take you, on average, at least a year of hard practice to be able to do this the way it's supposed to be done. Don't expect to do it in any less time than that. And that's if you practice every day. And that's known as Anaksh, which means the symbol, the pattern, the seal. And it has all manner of weird esoteric connotations to it, none of which I'm going to tell you.
Oh, cantankerous today.
Well, you know, it's, you get too far ahead of yourself and it all goes to hell.
Tree.
This reminds me of origami, where you're actually trying to create boxes and prisms and things. And it's so hard and I can't do it. I haven't put enough effort into it. But this exactly reminds me of when you start off just making just a cube and just those simple folds and the things that you do as a child, and then they make it more and more elaborate. And you just think, I just marvel at that. So this is putting that into a physical thing that you can feel.
Yeah.
And I like that comment where you say you get to a result and you realize you were awake when you got the result. It was patterned into you, but you actually weren't there. I mean, I've done that quite a few times with math too, a lot with math and a lot sometimes with reading. And you just think, oh, damn, I've got to go back and read that again because I wasn't there. It's kind of like that.
Yeah, most of us can relate to that. I know I do. Yeah.
And if that helps people to think, oh, how does this work? You know, so a simple square, you think, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. But yeah, start adding those lines. You think it's a wonderful thing, actually. This is actually, I really like this. So inspire
and
people
that's why
to...
we keep you around.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, but it makes sense because you have a good mathematical mind, which means that you're good at visualization. And so I can see the appeal to this of you, for you.
Is pattern recognition too, because you see the cycles, and that's what it's so fascinating in nature, where things are in cycles of certain numbers and things that grow, you know, when you're watching things grow, that's a wonderful thing. So just getting people to notice those details, looking at succulents, you know how the flowers are succulents and they go round and round in spirals and things. They're so beautiful. That's what your pictures are reminding me of, that we have wonderful examples all around us if we could only open our eyes. We're asleep with our eyes open.
Yep.
Yeah, we're enjoying watching our kana plant grow for that very reason. Yeah. all those little patterns start to emerge.
Yeah, and this is when I started learning to do 3D graphics, you work with what are called primitives. Primitives are cubes, spheres, cylinders, things like that. And that's what you make everything out of. Like the illustration behind me is made out of simple primitives. This starts out as a cylinder. These all over here start out as cubes. You have arcs and such like that, but they're all these really simple things that you put together and they become more and more complex until they look like you're sitting in a garden. But if you know how to see it, you can see the primitives as the basis of it. Does that make sense? Or did I just go way off in left field? Which happens sometimes.
It's like you're trying to describe a fractal.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's essentially what's underlying a lot of these shapes that we're talking about when we're talking about a succulent or, things like that, where the micro is in the macro and vice versa. But yeah, we don't want to get too far afield on that.
Yeah, James had something to say here.
James says, I'm very much the quote dozy dervish, unquote, in that as soon as I become focused on a symbol, experience, perception, etc., I doze off into it and forget myself. The self-remembering is the most elusive aspect for me.
Yeah, and most people will find that to be the case. But you can always, Mullah Nasruddin had a cure for that, which was he would ride his donkey backwards. And he would do these exercises. And if he fell asleep while doing the exercise, if he went into his unconscious patterns, he'd fall off the donkey, thereby waking him up. Eventually, he was motivated to stay awake just because he got tired of hitting the ground.
So I don't know that would be what that would be for your particular circumstance, James, but get creative. I'm sure you can think of something.
There are
Something
nice
not too
donkeys
big.
in Australia. There are a lot of nice donkeys in Australia. Some of them need a home.
All right. Do we have anything else we need to explore, Mushtaq, or can I check in with people?
Yeah, check in with people real quick.
Yeah. Nancy, how's it going for you?
I think we may have to come back to Nancy later.
Sure, we'll come back to Nancy. Jonathan, how about you?
Yeah, I had a question concerning my question is which center is really working here? Because my understanding is that the moving center and the emotional center work with images, and that the thinking center works with words and symbols. And wouldn't you say this cube is more of an image than a symbol?
Dude, what's the difference between an image and a symbol?
A symbol is something that has a meaning to it.
So you don't think a cube is a meaning in and of itself?
Only if you bring a meaning to it, and you didn't
That's true
attach
for
a meaning.
all of it, though.
But that's
Meaning is what you make, not what not what is intrinsic to the thing.
But the exercise you didn't bring a meaning to it. We were just
the meaning is the cube itself. The meaning is the doing of it. First of all, the idea that images work out of the moving center, for instance, is completely and utterly wrong. That is incorrect. And I can demonstrate that fairly easily by getting you to try and think your way into walking across the floor. You can't do it. You'll fall over if you can move at all.
But I can create an image of myself walking across the floor.
That's true, you can. And that comes from your mental center. Or some people would say the mental part of the moving center, or the moving part of the mental center. Don't let this be too simplistic.
I'm open to it being the thinking part of the moving center.
Be open to it and just being part of the intellectual center, of the thinking center. Those words are the least important part of this. As a matter of fact, for you, I would recommend don't worry about centers at all. Just do the exercise. Don't get caught up in intellectualizing what's going on.
Is that fair enough, Jonathan?
Fair enough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's an important consideration that you are both bringing forward, is that this is a task that does not require us to conceptualize too hard about it, right? It's mainly in the doing that this exercise takes place.
Yeah. And it's in the doing that the value takes place.
Thanks, Jonathan. Lavita, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Thank you for asking.
Yeah. Are you following this all right?
So far, so good.
Excellent. Yay.
Yes.
What do you find to be the easiest and hardest parts of this exercise for you?
The easiest part is visualization. The rest of it, I'm still processing.
That's fair enough. Yeah. Most people are going to be in the very same boat. Thanks, Lavita.
Thank you.
All right. So we've heard from just about everybody. Does anybody have anything they want to add?
How about you, Nancy?
Oh, you got to unmute. There you go.
Okay, I think I'm doing all right with it. Keeping all the corners sharp is difficult.
Mm.
And I'm guessing what further steps are in this exercise.
Yeah, keeping the corner sharp is the first breakthrough that you have to make, basically.
Mhm.
There we go. I see Alka's here.
Yes, she
Hi.
didn't get the memo.
Yeah, that's okay. It's not your fault. But we just had daylight saving time, so we're an hour ahead. So we're actually just beginning to wrap up tonight. Yes, I know, but that's what the replay's for. Yeah. It's great to see you though. All right. So, Mushtaq, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, if you try this out, let us know how it worked for you down in the comments. We're really interested, because this is where the rubber meets the road, and this is the kind of stuff that you don't get. Usually you get, doing zikr, especially in a group, chanting lots of names of God, opening up your heart to the divine influence, all of this kind of stuff, which is great. We dig that stuff. And that works on a different area of you. You've got to work on all three. As I said in the write-up, a tripod with one leg really much shorter than the other two will fall over. It can't stand.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to balance all of the aspects of ourselves.
Yeah.
Make them all strong.
And, you know, James offers that this is making him acutely aware of how much he's used various techniques to tranquilize himself. And we, you know, we all do that, which is why it's interesting to notice during exercises like this, where do I start tuning out? Where do I start, you know, being like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore? Or those things that we do that we just get sucked into and lose our, you know, that sense of self-awareness in, because it's just like we're fascinated with it. Sometimes we got to check ourselves. All right, well, I think that we have touched on a lot of good stuff this time, and
We have.
it's very, you know, this is one of those exercises that seems so simple, and yet it's actually rather profound in what it can reveal to us about where we're at in our sense of how we can apply our self-remembering to just everyday things. As simple as imagining, you know, a shape in three-dimensional space and manipulating that as if it were right in front of us.
Yeah. So, and as James mentioned, a lot of things in your life act as tranquilizers for you. Things like this are spiritual coffee. They want you to wake up. And as you may or may not know, Sufis were the ones who spread coffee all over the world. Sufis love their coffee, even more than tea.
Most of us, anyway. I'm not one of
Yeah.
them, but
So think of this as spiritual coffee. Without the heartburn, I hope.
work.
Is it true that at first coffee was banned by the Pope, the Catholic Church?
Oh, yeah. In part because the Muslim world loved coffee. I mean, Yemen was the place in the world where coffee spread. They probably got it originally from Ethiopia, but the coffee industry took place in Yemen, and they sent it all over the Islamic world. And all of a sudden, people discovered, oh, if I keep the night vigil and I drink coffee, I can stay awake easier. And so it became very, very popular. And this is where, you know, like in the Ottoman Empire, you had these café-khanes just
Houses.
springing up everywhere, coffee houses. Yeah. And tea was also popular for the same reason, but for the discerning Sufi, it was definitely coffee.
So there's your cup of coffee.
Yeah, yeah, and the Catholic Church decided that coffee was of the devil because these horrible infidel Muslims were drinking it. So
Oh my
a
gosh.
good Catholic shouldn't drink it, which was great because that means more coffee for us.
All right then. Any last thoughts?
Nope.
Going once, going
Other
twice.
than we're sorry that for the people who arrived late because they didn't get the memo that daylight savings time started here,
Yeah,
but
unfortunately.
we missed you until you got here.
Yes. I know. Pout. But that's okay. We'll have a bit of a chat afterwards, just a little bit.
I thought it was March 21st for some reason. So my days were all off. So anyway,
No, and you
so
guys don't
close.
do daylight savings times, do you?
nobody in the world does it other than, sorry to say, we Americans.
Well, no, the Australians
Us
do it, a
Aussies.
bunch of Europeans
Yeah.
do it, but same
Really?
countries don't do it. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, and it's fun because like Australia does it like a month later than us. So for that period, we're like lost in the
Oh yeah,
void. We don't know
2 hour
who's doing what.
chunks. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Separation.
I only know that even cows don't like it.
Oh no, cows hate it.
That's all I know. I hate it too.
well, we're surviving nonetheless. All right, so why don't we go to Brady Bunch mode?
Let's go to Brady Bunch mode.
And we can, yeah, first of all, thank you all for joining us. And sorry you didn't make it at our usual time, but that's okay. You're here now. You can watch on the replay. Wonderful to have you and see your faces. So let's all wave to each other and everybody watching on the replay. And actually, we will not see you next week because Mushtaq and I are doing a martial arts symposium, and you know that'll be
Yeah,
fun.
gonna be stabbing people.
Well, I'm not doing the martial arts.
She's not stabbing. I will do the stabbing for the both of us.
I may be helping out, and it'll be fun to observe what I can. So, until next time, 2 weeks from now, we will see you around. Take care, everybody.
I do.